Did you know? The first generation of Pokemon games have a number of oversights, one of which occurs as soon as players start a new game. During Professor Oak's introduction to the Pokemon world, he sends out a Nidorino that uses the cry of a Nidorina instead. The original versions of Red and Green had even more mistakes. If the player fights the gym leader Sabrina and loses, then re-enters the gym, the game believes the player has won and gives them the gym's badge and TM46. In the Pokemon Center outside Mount Moon, the player is able to buy a Magikarp from a salesman for 500 Poké-Dollars. However, if both the player's party and current PC box are full, the salesman will take their money without giving them the Magikarp, which can be repeated. Mistakes like these were caught and rectified in later releases of the Kanto games, such as the special Pokemon Blue and Yellow editions. However, more errors sprung up in their place. In the Cerulean Gym, as well as Lorelei's room at the Pokemon League, wild Pokemon are programmed in the water tiles of both areas. If the player has a rod equipped, they can fish for several kinds of water-type Pokemon. Any rod works just fine in Red and Blue, but in Yellow only the old and good rod will work. This oversight also showed up in Gold and Silver, but was finally fixed for Pokemon Crystal. Kanto's Celadon City Hotel has nothing of interest for the player. However, in Red and Blue, it oddly features an invisible PC. This is because the hotel uses the same layout as the game's Pokemon centers, and if the player goes to where a computer would be in a center, they can access a PC in the hotel. There are other invisible PCs that can be found in Fuchsia City's Safari Zone. These are inaccessible without hacking the game, however, and they were fixed in Pokemon Yellow. The games have fallen victim to a number of translation errors in various regions over the years. For instance, the Spanish versions of Red and Blue were known for having spotty translation work. In the English game, when players hook a Pokemon with a rod, the text, "The hooked Pokemon attacked," will appear. In the Spanish game, however, the text was translated as saying "El malvado Pokemon atacó," meaning the wicked or evil Pokemon attacked. This mistranslation is particularly impressive, as we spoke to several native Spanish speakers and none of them could explain how this happened. Moves in the Spanish version had their own fair share of mistakes, notably with the move Slam. Descriptions of the move imply that Pokemon perform a kind of body slam attack, but in Spanish, the move was known as Portazo, literally meaning door slam. This error wasn't fixed until the release of Pokemon X and Y, when it was finally changed to Atazar, meaning to land a blow. The Gen 1 move Comet Punch is called Consecutive Punch in the Japanese game. This caused issues when a move actually called Comet Punch was added to the Japanese games in Gen 3. When this move's name was localized, it was renamed to Meteor Mash. This is why the move has always been illustrated in battle with a punch, and can be affected by the Iron Fist ability, which boosts punch-based attacks. In Pokemon Colosseum, the move Frenzy Plant was erroneously called Solid Plant in English, though the name does more closely resemble the move's Japanese name, Hard Plant. Frenzy Plant, along with Blast Burn and Hydro Cannon, were first made accessible in Fire Red and Leaf Green, though Colosseum came out several months prior. Even so, the proper name exists in Ruby and Sapphire's data, so it's likely just a placeholder error. The move Transform has a peculiar way of working in the first two generations. Any Pokemon using the move is regarded as a Ditto, as Ditto is one of the only two Pokemon who can learn the move at all. If the player catches a Pokemon that used Transform via mirror moves such as Spearow or Pidgey, or a glitch Pokemon using the move, they'll end up with a Ditto. Mew is the only other Pokemon who learns Transform, though it can't be found in the wild. The mainline games have a number of instances of Pokemon using moves they shouldn't be able to learn. In pre-released footage, Pokemon have also been shown using moves they're unable to learn in the final game. In early screenshots for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Mega Blaziken was seen using the move Ice Punch, which it couldn't use come the game's release. The official Japanese Pokemon website issued an apology for any misleading information and later removed the images. Probably the most well-known example of an illegitimate move is found with Lance's Dragonite in Pokemon Red and Blue, which had the move Barrier, a move Dragonite has never been able to learn. This error was referenced in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where a Dragonite that could use Barrier was given away to participants of the Kanto Classic Wi-Fi event in 2016. Lance's Aerodactyl in Gold and Silver also has the move Rock Slide, which it couldn't learn until the next generation. Type matchups didn't always work as intended either. The Ghost type was supposed to be super effective against Psychic types in the first generation, but in practice it's very much the opposite. opposite. Not only were all ghost types in the game weak to Psychic due to their secondary poison typing, but there were only 3 ghost moves in the first gen: Lick, Confuse Ray, and Nightshade. With Nightshade doing fixed damage and Confuse Ray being a status-based move, Lick was the only one to do direct damage. However, when used on a Psychic type, it has no effect whatsoever. There were many official sources that claimed Ghost was good against Psychic. This included official Nintendo strategy guides, episodes of the Pokemon anime, and a trainer in Sabrina's gym who claimed the type is one of the only 2 effective against Psychic Pokemon. This text was actually removed in yellow, and by the time Gold and Silver came out, the error was fixed altogether. The Dragon type was also meant to be super effective on itself in the first generation, though in this case the only Dragon move that existed was Dragon Rage, which like Nightshade did not do super effects damage. Though the second generation fixed many problems that plagued the Kanto games, they had their fair share of oversights, notably with new mechanics. New variations of Pokeballs were introduced to make certain Pokemon easier to catch, but nearly half of them don't work as advertised. The Love Ball was said to make Pokemon of the same species and opposite gender an easier catch, but the effect only works if the wild Pokemon is the same gender as the player's Pokemon. The Fast Ball was made for Pokemon that flee from battle, though of the 21 Pokemon able to run away, the ball only works on 3, Magnemite, Tangela, and Grimer. As an aside, a few of the Pokemon programmed to flee either can't be found in the wild or don't appear in the game at all, like Eevee and Umbreon, as well as the legendary birds. Strangest of all is the Moon Ball, made to catch Pokemon that evolve with the Moonstone, such as Jigglypuff and Clefairy. However, the effect is instead determined by checking if the Pokemon evolves holding the Burn Heal item. To this day, no Pokemon evolves with Burn Heal, and due to this, the ball functions like a regular Pokeball. Gold and Silver also introduced held items to the series, not all working as planned. The Dragon Fang was supposed to boost the power of Dragon-type moves, but it actually doesn't do a thing when held. The effects can instead be found in the Dragon Scale item, which evolves Seadra into Kingdra when traded. This was fixed in Pokemon Stadium 2. Stadium 1 and 2 fixed many gameplay issues found in the handheld games, though they've got a few mistakes of their own. In Stadium 2, if the player hooks up the transfer pack with Pokemon Blue to look up the locations of the game's wild Pokemon, it will instead show the location of Pokemon from the Japanese version of the game. The international versions of Red and Blue are based on Japanese Blue's layout, but the Pokemon selection is taken from Red and Green. For example, Jinx can be found in the Seafoam Islands in Japanese Blue, but can only be obtained through an in-game trade in the international versions. Players can also transfer items to other games via transfer pack, potentially breaking a few story sequences. It's possible for Kanto players to face Sabrina as early as the second gym, as the only roadblock to Saffron is the officer wanting a drink from the player. Stadium 2 also features an oversight which allows for infinite continues in Stadium mode. The player must first enter any battle in Stadium mode and earn a continue, after which they must suspend, enter another Stadium Cup, and earn one more continue. The next time the player loses, they must choose the suspend option. Then the game will warn the player of an already suspended game. If they choose the option continue without suspending, they'll be able to rematch the trainer they just lost to, all without using up a continue. If the player gets to Cinnabar Island, they can trade a Mana Raichu for an Electrode. If the player talks to him again, the man will say, "The Raichu you traded me went and evolved." Although this sparked many rumors of Raichu being able to evolve, it was simply an error. The English Pokemon Red and Blue are based on the Japanese Special Edition Pokemon Blue, and in that game the old man trades a Kadabra for a Graveler and was exclaiming that the Kadabra had evolved into an Alakazam. The original Japanese Red and Green versions also had the old man trading a Raichu for an Electrode, and the English game was likely referencing this text without fixing the actual trade. Funnily enough, we'd find out years later that Raichu was planned to evolve in the beta versions of Pokemon Red and Green into the unused Pokemon Gorochu. In a similar fashion, the trade of Poliwhirl for Jinx in Cerulean City also features the same dialogue, with an old man saying Poliwhirl had evolved. This is because the man originally traded a Haunter for a Machoke, both of which evolved by trading. Coincidentally, Poliwhirl ended up receiving a trade evolution in the form of Politoed one generation later. In the Gen 1 games, the player is able to play the cries of the Pokemon registered in their Pokédex. For an unknown reason, if Pikachu's cry is played repeatedly, every 5th or 6th time the cry is heard, it will be slightly distorted. Though the games have gotten more polished over the years, oversights still pop up from time to time, even in Pokemon Sun and Moon. When evolving a Pokemon, for instance, before the Pokemon is evolving text appears, its evolved form may show up in the top left corner of the screen in a blink and you'll miss it moment. In Pokemon Moon, the totem Raticate uses the cry of the Pokemon Gumshoos. This is because in Pokemon Sun, Gumshoos is the corresponding totem Pokemon. Did you also know that Red from Pokemon was originally a character called Yuichi? Or that Red may have been planned to have a bigger role in Pokemon Gold and Silver? For more facts, watch the Did You Know Gaming video on Red, and if you like hearing about obscure gaming nostalgia from the 90s and early 2000s, whether it be strange flash games or underrated console gems, you can head on over to my channel. I got a lot of goodies for ya.